You're listening to Olivia's Book Club, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.
Hey there, and welcome to Olivia's Book Club, and I'm still your host, Olivia Fierro. Very happy for you to be joining us today, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite streaming service. I'm going to start with numbers, which is something that my brain generally does not compute. So I'll look down. I have to look at numbers to say them out loud. This is episode 104, which is pretty cool, and it's also the second to last episode of this particular podcast. So I'm very happy that you're going to be with me. Make sure to follow social media to see what's happening next. Our guest today is the first guest to be making his third appearance. See, I told you there were numbers involved, which is really, really exciting, and I'm so happy to be welcoming Riley Sager back to the show. First, you came on to talk about Survive the Night. And then it was last summer's The House Across the Lake. And of course, you are back. Your big June debut is The Only One Left. And I think it's my favorite of all that I've read of your work so far. So Riley Sager, thank you so much for coming back to Olivia's Book Club. And, ooh, man, this was an exciting one.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, I've been hearing that quite a lot lately where people are like, oh, my favorite used to be so-and-so or this one, but this one might be my new favorite. And I love hearing that.
So yeah, I was going to ask you, do you genuinely love that? Or so I'm just neurotic enough or insecure enough to, if somebody says something like that to me, then I take it as a backhanded compliment. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Then you hated something else and you know what I mean? Like, then it starts to be some sort of emotional spiral. It's hard to just take in the good stuff.
Yeah, I used to be that way when someone would be like, oh, I read this in a day or I read this in 4 hours. And I used to think, well, it took me 10 months to write it. So just savor it. Slow down.
Slow down.
But now I realize, like, no, that's a very, very good thing.
It means it's a page turner, right?
Yes.
It means that I have ignored all of my responsibilities and all of the humans in my life because this book is too good to put down.
Yeah, possibly hygiene, possibly like not eating. Yeah, like all the. So it's very much a compliment, and I'm sorry for people who do neglect their families to finish this book.
Yeah,
there will be some of you.
There will be some, or there will be some people who are just stinking to holy hell, and we'll be like, well, what is the problem? It was Riley Sager. I could not shower, and I could not even brush my teeth. I was really in the grips of it. So, will you give the description of this gothic thriller masterpiece that creates so much tension and so much, I mean, it's just that you're really putting the reader so in this estate, so aptly named Hope's End.
Yes, the book is very, very loosely inspired by Lizzie Borden, like just in the smallest way possible. And it is about a woman named Lenora Hope, who, when she was 17, she might have killed her entire family. They could never prove it. She was never arrested. She's never talked about that night. She's just hidden herself away in her family's Gilded Age mansion, fittingly called Hope's End. It is now 5 decades later. She's older. She's in poor health. And a young caregiver is brought in to take care of her. And her name is Kit. And Kit discovers that Lenora can't walk, can't talk, can't really do much of anything, but she can type because she can move her left hand. And so she uses her left hand to communicate things by typing. And one night she types to Kit, I want to tell you everything. And so Kit begins to help Lenora tell her tale and soon realizes that, oh boy, there's a whole lot to this story that people don't know, and lots of secrets, lots of twists, lots of surprises.
Well, it's just, okay, the ambiance, the environment that you create coming into this home. I mean, it's sort of frozen in time from essentially the night of the murders in 1929, and there's blood stains on the carpet, and there's creepy portraits that are covered up, those who were dead are covered up, and the only one left, the survivor, we still see her creepy teenage portrait, and it just just the environment. I am somebody who does not want to stay in one of these hotels that say that they're haunted. I don't want to be any part of any of that stuff. So to me, it's like going into the home, I could just feel like, now, and Kit is so out of options that this is literally the only job that she can get, and she has nowhere else to go if she were to turn down this gig. And the tension is so intense.
Yeah, and there's like it's funny, like Lenora Hope is no one wants to take care of her. Like there's a reason like Kit is sort of like the only nurse willing to go take care of her. And that's because Lenora is kind of the only person willing to have Kit care for her, because Kit's got some things in her past too that like we soon learn about through the book. And so these two characters are kind of made for each other in a way where they're literally their only hope, no pun intended, like for each other.
The job comes open, and basically because of a mysterious, really quick exit, let's say, of her predecessor. And Kit has also run into some complications with her career that we find out later. She's been about a dozen years as a home healthcare worker. Things have gone wrong for her. And she also has understanding what it's like to live under kind of that cloud of suspicion. I mean, we've all probably, been there a time or two, somebody thought you were maybe saying, gossiping about somebody, or, going out with somebody's boyfriend, or who knows what, but it's for both of these women, the suspicions surrounding them are a lot more intense than most of us would be able to relate to.
Very, very much so. And it was fun coming up with these two characters and the way that people look at them. Like Lenora, for all intents and purposes, is a blank slate. Like she is just an elderly woman in a gray nightgown sitting in a wheelchair looking out a window. Yet there are untold depths to her that her placid surface doesn't even hint at. And Kit comes in and is offered a chance to sort of peer inside Lenora's brain and see what she's thinking and learn the truth. And so she's like, I will help you tell this story. But along the way, she starts to think, is Lenora even telling me the truth?
Right.
Like she's telling me something, but is that what really happened here? And so there are like multiple layers of suspicion going on.
Well, that's what I love. So we love, as readers, we enjoy the concept of an unreliable narrator. And in this case, we're sort of in a character's perspective, being Kit, trying to figure out if this other character is a reliable narrator and an unreliable narrator. And we're really the conduit to figuring this all out. And the truth is, do we really want to know the truth? And also the intimacy of this job. It's to me, I mean, it's so, I mean, there are some people who can do it, and I'm sure do it so well and find it to be incredibly rewarding. And then there are some people who just could never do it because you are so intimate with a stranger. From the moment that you arrive at this job, they're relying on you for so much. And that just, to me, created another level of tension on top of all of the spooky and all of the what's really happened here and all of the, evil that had happened in that space. That's a level of tension and strain that is emotionally gripping.
Yeah, that was really fun to explore because it is so intimate. Like Kit has to feed Lenora. She has to bathe Lenora. She has to change Lenora's adult diaper. Like she is like as intimate as you can be with a person. And at the same time, she does not know, did this woman that literally my job is to keep her alive, did she take the lives of her parents and her sister? Mm-hmm. And how do I feel about that? And there are times when like I think of Kit as like kind of the surrogate for the reader, because there are times when Kit likes Lenora. Lenora can be very likable in her strange way. There are times when she's terrified of Lenora, where she's suspicious of Lenora, where she's sympathetic to Lenora. And I wanted the readers to go through all of these emotions sometimes at the very same time. Like, I like her, but I'm scared of her, and I suspect her, but I want her to be innocent, but I don't think she is. And that's exactly how Kit is feeling pretty much the whole way through this book.
Total roller coaster ride. I love, and then I almost had regretted not listening to it on audio because I want to know how the rhyme, the schoolyard rhyme, sounds. It made me think a little bit of when I was a kid, the scariest movie that I ever saw was Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean, I don't even remember being allowed to see it. I think I peeked in when my parents had rented it from Blockbuster and saw and heard just enough to not sleep for a long time. And it was 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. That little that seeps into your brain. And so we've got one about these Hope murders.
Yes. Do you want me to recite it?
Yeah,
I can.
will
I have
you?
it. At 17, Lenora Hope hung her sister with a rope, stabbed her father with a knife, took her mother's happy life. It wasn't me, Lenora said, but she's the only one not dead. And that was the very first thing I wrote. Before I even knew what the plot was really going to be, I knew there needed to be some kind of Lizzie Borden creepy rhyme associated with her. And so one afternoon I just sat down and thought, okay, let's come up with a rhyme about this woman who didn't even have a name then. Her name, I arrived at it through the rhyming process and what rhymes with rope? Hope. Her last name's Hope. And so that rhyme was the very first thing.
Oh, that is so good. It's so fun to hear how these stories play out in from their origin, and just the creative process is just incredibly fascinating. You get to, in this book, take us back to this, kind of gilded age of 1929 and this fabulously wealthy family, and also into the 80s. And you've revisited the 90s plenty of times. And we both have a mutual affection for 90s music and all things 90s. Today you are wearing an homage to the 1980s on your
Yes.
T-shirt. We've got the Jaws movie.
Jaws 3D. Yep.
Oh, gosh, it's big. So what was it about the 80s that appealed to you this time? I mean, it really took me back when I was thinking about the Walkman.
I knew it couldn't take place in present day because of the technology. Kit would have gotten there, Googled Lenora Hope,
I'm
known
out.
the score, been like, see ya, I'll find a
Peace.
job somewhere else. I don't know what. So there needed to be a time before our modern technology. 1983 is familiar enough to those of us who are alive then, or even if you weren't born yet, you still have a general idea of how 1983 was.
Mm-hmm.
But also, it's so far away from our present day, no cell phones, no computers. So it's very close to how we live now, but also light years away from how we live now. And I wanted Hope's End to feel the same way. I wanted to feel like a place out of time, that the murders took place in 1929 and then time stopped in this mansion. And here's a person from the 80s coming in and being unmoored by it all. What year is it? Because it's 1983, but it feels like 1929. And I thought that was a very fun thing to do.
Oh yeah, I mean you can feel how out of place and off kilter emotionally and even physically, actually, because of the way that the house is positioning on an eroding cliffside, that anybody would feel stepping into this new environment. And it's really, on top of that, being that this is an area that everybody knows as for the only fabulously wealthy. So it's almost its own world. So there's that sense of, are we going into sort of another spiritual place or another plane, because it's so otherworldly in terms of how foreign it is to her in all ways.
Yeah, I really wanted this mansion to feel truly like another planet. It's this Gilded Age mansion that's just beautiful from a distance and grand and lavish, and then you get closer and then you get inside and you see oh, it's kind of falling apart. And then the tilt, like it's literally tilted toward the ocean because the waves are eroding the cliff that it sits upon. And so kid is literally off balance mentally, physically, like in all ways. Like she just is like, whoa. And I thought it was a perfect way to reflect like her mindset as she's entering this strange place where these murders occurred.
Yeah, and you have the reader feeling that same sensibility of like, oh my gosh, I'm totally off balance. Like, what's going to happen next? What's happening? It's so good. You are going to be going out on tour. So when people listening to this, the 19th, Monday, you are physically, actually, IRL in Scottsdale, Arizona, going to the Poison Pen Bookstore. So I know it's probably been a long time since your book tours were not virtual. Do you like hitting the road? Is this going to be a good time for you?
Yes, I actually got to go on the road last year too, which was very fun. It was nerve-wracking at first because I'm like, oh, I haven't been out in a while. What's it going to be like? It's so much fun. Book tours are this big swirl of emotions because I love being in the stores and meeting the booksellers and meeting the readers and just getting to chat, not just about my books, but books in general. And it's so much fun. There's also a lot of travel involved because it involves like having this high of being on an event that sometimes can last for like, depending on how long the line is to get books signed, like 2 to 3 hours. Mm-hmm. And then 4 o'clock wake up time the next morning to hop on a plane and go to another city and do it all over again. And so it's these highs and lows that by the time the tour is over, I'm so satisfied and happy. And also I'm a zombie.
I bet because everybody also they're coming to have a moment with you, and it's really that's just such a well-established bookstore here in town, and really people who love thrillers and love suspense. I mean, frequent that store in particular for these conversations.
Yeah, it's a great store.
Oh, this is so exciting. So wait, I did look on Spotify because I know that you've done playlists to go with your books in the past, and I did not find anything that was giving me a blend of 1929 tunes and 1983. Is this in the works?
You wait. There's something in. Yep.
Oh, there's.
There's. I don't even know if I can say, but I.
Oh, you can say.
No, I recorded something yesterday for a thing that asked me to come up with a playlist for the book and talk about why I chose certain songs. And so I recorded that yesterday. And so I think it will be coming out sometime in early July.
Okay.
So there is a playlist, definitely.
Okay. Because 1983, I mean, if you're not giving me plenty of Duran Duran, I'm out.
Oh, Duran Duran is on there. Yes.
All right. Excited about that. I believe that I also read some news about a movie deal. Of course, we're in the middle of the writer's strike, and we know everything is on pause. And I think we just read a story today that was some of the Star Wars or some of the big franchises were like, oh, we might be like 10 years later. I don't know. That seems a little bit over the top. But is there something happening with you in Hollywood?
Oh, there was. I don't know anymore what the strike is ever. There was. So pre-strike, it was announced that The House Across the Lake, my last book, is in development at Netflix with Berlanti Productions, who they've done amazing things, and the director attached is Paul Feig, who is brilliant, and he did A Simple Favor and Bridesmaids and the reboot of Ghostbusters, and I'm so excited. And I hope once the writer's strike gets all sorted out and like people like start being able to develop things again, that the development will continue on. But right now it's just
everything's on pause. Yeah, everything's on pause, but the projects will resume. And I mean, that sounds like just a perfect combination. Do you have interest in writing screenplays and adapting your own work, or are you going to be able to just let it go?
I do have interest. Movies are very much a love of mine. I'm not sure I'd be able to adapt something of mine because I know adaptation, you need to make a lot of sacrifices.
Yeah.
Like you need to cut things and so I don't know if I'm capable of doing that. And it's like, oh, but I love this. Can't we keep this part in when you know in your heart like it needs to go?
Riley Sager's debut movie is 4.5 hours.
Yes.
It's a long miniseries. Well, and that is going to be, that's kind of got to be a real big budget-ish kind of, I mean, there's some fantastical, that's not like an easy indie movie, I think, right? House Across the Lake?
Right. Yeah. And that was something I did talk with, and I got to meet the director when we were discussing, like, who should make this movie if they want to make this movie. And I said, like, well, there are two ways you can go. Like, it can be like a small, gritty, independent movie with a low budget, or it could be a big, glamorous, expensive Hollywood film with stars. And he's like, I only do big, expensive, glamorous movies with stars. I'm like,
nice to meet you. Yes, yeah, exactly.
Like, yes, you're the guy.
You're like, that's the one. We're feeling the same vibe. Right, we talked about before that you put us in this tension mode with your writing, and God, you did it really well this time. You like to relax with the opposite type of entertainment, right? So what is your what are your diversions right now? Shows, movies, music, what?
I just finished watching Ted Lasso. The final, I wanted to, like,
you were stretching it out, right? I'm doing the same thing.
I wasn't totally on board with season 3, but they wrap it all up beautifully. And no one knows that there's going to be more. If this is the way it goes, I'm perfectly fine with that. There's a show on Peacock called Mrs. Davis that I loved. It's insane.
Ooh.
It's such an insane show. It's about a nun trying to take down this piece of AI called Mrs. Davis that the world is, like, addicted to. And she's, like, on this one nun crusade to, like, destroy this artificial intelligence. And it goes to such crazy places. You have no idea, like, what's happening half the time. And I loved it.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, I'm going to add that to my list. I thought of you because I was thinking about this. We had loved Girls Five Eva, which I doesn't seem to be coming back, does it?
Netflix. It's coming back on Netflix.
It is?
Yeah.
You've just made my day.
Peacock canceled it. Netflix picked it up. I don't know when it's going to come back,
right.
but it is coming back.
Oh,
yes.
And that's going to be the home of your film, and then you're probably going to get to do a guest spot on it. I mean, I just feel like this is the way it's going to play out. It just seems meant to be.
You said it, so that's manifesting it. So
right?
It's going to happen.
We're putting it out into the universe, definitely. My guilty pleasure, well, I wouldn't be a guilty pleasure, but my happy one was I just watched the movie Flamin' Hot about the
Oh,
Cheetahs.
I heard it's really good. Yes.
So good. It's just that kind of like where you're like a little teary-eyed. It's very heartwarming and all the good stuff. But let me just ask you. I know you're already working on your next book. How have you been able to, especially with as busy as you're going to be, I'm sure, promoting this and all of the attention that this is bound to get because it's so good. Do you then have to really struggle to refocus when you get back to the next project, or does it make everything feel like it flows more smoothly because you're kind of like riding a high off of, yeah, everybody's loving this?
I wouldn't say struggle, but I do have to shut myself off from everything. Like, there are a lot of distractions when you're promoting a book. And like with the case of The Only One Left, there's been, there's a special edition in Barnes and Noble with exclusive content. It's the Walmart summer selection for the Walmart book club. So there's exclusive edition for that edition. So there's been a lot of stuff going on with The Only One Left. And it's like, I need to kind of write my next book just so everyone remembers I have a deadline. And so once my book tour is over, then it becomes a matter of like almost becoming like a monk, where it's like, okay, I'm sequestering myself in my office. Mm-hmm. I'm becoming very zen, and I'm focusing solely on getting this next book written to the best of my abilities. So it's just the total switching of gears.
Yeah, completely. And being out there, and also living in the story that you wrote quite some time ago now, and then going back to the next one that people will be able to enjoy. Well, this was absolutely fantastic. I mean, cannot recommend it more highly. It is just a page turner, and anybody who enjoys this genre is just going to be all over it and biting their nails off and the whole bit. So again, we apologize for those relatives and friends who will not be called or texted. But the neglect is definitely worthwhile if it's for The Only One Left by Riley Sager. Riley, thank you so much for talking with me again. I really appreciate it, and congratulations.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Enjoy Scottsdale.
Bye. Thank you. I will. I love. We're staying at the Hotel Valley Ho, and I love it there.
It's
Mid-century
so cute there.
vibes.
I know.
Yeah,
I love
awesome.
it. And then you just can walk over to the bookstore,
You just
right?
walk to the store. Yeah, easy peasy.
I love it. Well, enjoy.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Olivia's Book Club, the podcast. I'm your host, Olivia Fierro. Our producer is Margaret Stewart. You can send us an email with your thoughts or your book recommendations. Olivia's Book Club at azfamily.com is the address. And you can check out Olivia's Book Club on Facebook or find us on Instagram. Hello, Bookstagrammers, at olivias.bookclub, and Margaret is at Overbooked and Overdue. Make sure to rate and subscribe to this podcast and tell your friends. You can find us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Amazon Music.
This is Olivia's Book Club, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.